Before you continue with your day, pay close attention to what you're about to hear, because somewhere without your knowledge, something reached your soulmate that was never expected to find them. It wasn't planned. It wasn't delivered by someone's voice. It wasn't hidden inside a message on a screen. Instead, it arrived quietly, almost unnoticed, during an ordinary moment when they believed nothing unusual was happening. At first, they nearly dismissed it. They assumed it was just another passing thought, another random memory crossing their mind. But the feeling refused to disappear. The more they tried to ignore it, the more clearly it returned, as though something deep within their spirit was asking them to stop running and finally pay attention. Listen carefully, because this is where everything began to change. For a long time, they believed this chapter of their life had already settled into silence. They convinced themselves there was nothing left to understand, nothing left to question, and nothing left worth revisiting. Yet life has an extraordinary way of revealing hidden truths when the heart is finally ready to receive them. What reached them wasn't information they had never heard before. It was understanding they had never allowed themselves to embrace. Suddenly, forgotten moments no longer felt ordinary. Small conversations carried unexpected meaning. Quiet memories that had gathered dust in the corners of their mind returned with remarkable clarity, almost as if they had been waiting for this exact moment to be seen differently. And the strange part is this: they cannot explain why everything feels so different now. Nothing around them has visibly changed, yet everything inside them has. A quiet certainty has begun replacing old uncertainty, and that inner shift has left them questioning everything they once believed about this connection. The more they reflect, the more impossible it becomes to dismiss what their heart is gently revealing. They are beginning to realize that some messages are never spoken aloud because they are meant to be discovered, not delivered. Some truths wait patiently beneath everyday life until one unexpected moment uncovers them, changing the meaning of everything that came before. That hidden message has finally reached your soulmate, and ever since that moment, they can no longer see you, this connection, or even themselves through the same eyes they once did. This is only the beginning of a journey they never expected to take, and deep inside, they already sense that whatever comes next will not allow them to return to the person they were before this quiet awakening began. Ever since that hidden message reached your soulmate, something remarkable has been unfolding beneath the surface of their everyday life. At first, they couldn't explain why their thoughts kept drifting back to moments they had not considered in a very long time. It wasn't intentional. They weren't trying to relive the past or reopen emotions they believed had already settled. Yet no matter how busy they became, quiet memories continued finding their way back into their heart. Listen carefully, because this is where the message began revealing its true purpose. What first appeared to be a simple memory slowly became something much greater. They started remembering little details they had completely overlooked before. A conversation that once seemed ordinary suddenly carried a deeper meaning. A smile they barely noticed at the time now felt unforgettable. Words that once passed by without much thought began echoing differently inside their mind. It was almost as if someone had quietly adjusted the lens through which they viewed the past, allowing them to see everything with new clarity. The events themselves had not changed, but their understanding of those events had transformed completely. That realization left them wondering how many other important truths they had missed simply because they were looking in the wrong direction. The more they reflected, the more difficult it became to dismiss what their heart was showing them. They realized they had spent too much time focusing on circumstances instead of intentions, on appearances instead of sincerity, on assumptions instead of genuine understanding. Slowly, they began questioning whether they had truly seen you for who you were, or whether they had unknowingly viewed you through layers of misunderstanding created by fear, timing, or the opinions of others. That question lingered longer than they expected, because deep inside they already sensed the answer. They began recognizing qualities in you that had always been present but had somehow escaped their attention before. Your quiet strength suddenly stood out. Your patience during difficult moments carried new significance. Your consistency, your kindness, your ability to remain genuine even when life became complicated, all of these things returned to their memory with unexpected force. It wasn't because these qualities suddenly appeared. They had always been there. The difference was that your soulmate had finally become ready to recognize them. There comes a point in every meaningful journey when people stop asking what happened and begin asking why it mattered. That is exactly where your soulmate finds themselves now. Every reflection seems to uncover another hidden lesson. Every memory feels connected to something larger than they first imagined. They are beginning to understand that some of life's greatest messages are hidden inside moments that seem completely ordinary while they are happening. Only later do they reveal their true importance. This understanding has brought both peace and discomfort. Peace because many things finally make sense. Discomfort because they cannot ignore how much time was spent believing an incomplete story. They are realizing that misunderstandings often grow quietly, not because people intentionally choose them, but because truth sometimes arrives long after assumptions have taken root. Yet truth possesses a quiet strength that assumptions can never match. Once it enters the heart, it begins dissolving confusion one piece at a time. That is exactly what is happening now. Every day the hidden message grows clearer. Every day, another layer of uncertainty falls away. They no longer feel drawn toward endless questions because answers are beginning to appear naturally through reflection rather than force. They have stopped searching for dramatic signs because they are discovering that the most powerful revelations often arrive gently, asking only for an open heart, willing to see what has been there all along. As this understanding continues to deepen, they can feel themselves becoming someone different. Not because life around them has changed overnight, but because the way they see this connection has been transformed forever. The hidden message did not simply remind them of you. It reminded them that some connections are impossible to fully understand until the right moment arrives. And now that moment has finally come, leaving them unable to return to the comfortable certainty they once carried, because the truth has quietly replaced it with something far more powerful, genuine understanding. The more your soulmate allows this hidden message to settle into their heart, the more they realize they are no longer the same person they were before it arrived. Listen closely, because this is the part they never prepared for. They believed the message would simply answer a few lingering questions, but instead it awakened emotions they had spent a very long time trying to silence. For so long, they convinced themselves that moving forward meant leaving certain thoughts behind. They believed that enough time, enough distractions, and enough distance would eventually quiet every unanswered feeling. Yet the exact opposite has happened. Instead of fading, those feelings have become clearer than ever before. They no longer appear as confusion. They appear as truth. That realization has created an emotional shift they never expected to experience. They find themselves caught between the comfort of the familiar and the uncertainty of honesty. Part of them wants to continue believing the old story because it feels safe. It asks nothing from them. It requires no difficult decisions and no vulnerable conversations. But another part of them, a part that grows stronger with every passing day, refuses to ignore what their heart is quietly revealing. They are beginning to understand that genuine peace cannot be built upon pretending. It can only be built upon truth. That understanding has become impossible to escape. Every quiet evening brings another moment of reflection. Every ordinary day carries another unexpected reminder. They no longer have to search for signs, because the smallest moments now seem to speak with remarkable clarity. A familiar place, a passing conversation, an old memory, or even a few moments of silence somehow bring them back to the same realization. This connection continues to matter in ways they never fully admitted to themselves. They have started asking questions they avoided for far too long. Why did this person remain in my thoughts when so many others faded away? Why do these memories still carry so much emotion? Why does every attempt to move on somehow lead me back to the same place? These questions no longer feel uncomfortable. They feel necessary. And with every honest answer, another piece of fear quietly loses its hold. They are beginning to recognize that much of what kept them emotionally distant was never a lack of feeling. It was uncertainty, hesitation, and the belief that ignoring emotions would somehow make life simpler. Instead, all it created was a silence that became heavier with time. That silence no longer brings comfort. It feels unfinished, like a story waiting for its final chapter. They understand now that the heart has its own way of preserving what truly matters. Long after the mind tries to move on, the heart quietly protects the connections that carry genuine meaning. Your soulmate is experiencing that reality with growing clarity. They are no longer trying to convince themselves that these emotions will disappear because they have finally accepted that authentic feelings are not problems waiting to be solved. They are truths waiting to be acknowledged. As this realization continues to deepen, something beautiful is beginning to replace the uncertainty that once controlled them. Confidence is quietly taking the place of hesitation. Not confidence that every outcome will unfold perfectly, but confidence that honesty is always a stronger foundation than fear. They are discovering that vulnerability is not a sign of weakness, but evidence of emotional growth. The walls they built to protect themselves are no longer serving the purpose they once did. Instead of keeping pain out, those walls have been keeping truth inside. One by one, those barriers are beginning to fall. Every reflection, every memory, and every quiet moment is guiding them toward the same conclusion. They cannot continue living according to a version of reality that no longer feels true. The hidden message that reached them has done far more than change the way they see this connection. It has changed the way they see themselves. And for the first time in a very long while, they are no longer asking whether their heart is speaking. They already know it is. The only question that remains is how much longer they are willing to wait before finally allowing that truth to shape the future that has been patiently waiting for them all along. Now your soulmate finds themselves standing at a crossroads that feels impossible to ignore. The hidden message that quietly reached their heart has become more than a passing realization. It has become the reason they can no longer keep living the way they once did. Listen carefully, because this is where everything begins to move in a different direction. For a long time, they believed they could simply wait until life made the decision for them. They convinced themselves that if they remained patient long enough, circumstances would somehow provide all the answers. Whenever uncertainty appeared, they postponed it. Whenever their heart whispered something they weren't ready to hear, they found another reason to stay still. They mistook hesitation for wisdom and silence for peace. But lately those old habits no longer bring comfort. Instead, they leave behind an emptiness that grows more noticeable with every passing day. They are beginning to understand that avoiding a decision is still a decision, and delaying the truth does not change the truth itself. It only delays the freedom that comes from accepting it. That realization has quietly transformed the way they look at their future. They have started imagining what life will feel like if they continue pretending this hidden message never reached them. At first, that future seemed familiar. It required no difficult conversations, no emotional risks, and no changes. But the longer they sat with that picture, the more incomplete it felt. They realized they might protect themselves from temporary discomfort, yet they would also deny themselves the opportunity to experience something real. Then another future began forming in their mind. It wasn't a future with every answer clearly written. It wasn't perfect or predictable. Yet it carried something the first future could never offer, a sense of honesty. They began realizing that uncertainty built upon truth feels far lighter than certainty built upon denial. That thought has remained with them ever since. It has become the quiet voice guiding every moment of reflection. They no longer ask themselves what is easiest. Instead, they ask what is most authentic. That single shift has changed everything. Fear still speaks from time to time, reminding them of every possible disappointment, every unanswered question, and every uncertain outcome. But fear no longer controls the conversation the way it once did. Another voice has grown stronger. It is calmer, quieter, and impossible to ignore. It reminds them that the greatest regrets in life are rarely caused by loving too deeply. More often, they are caused by remaining silent when the heart was asking to be honest. Your soulmate has begun recognizing that lesson within their own journey. They understand now that meaningful connections are not measured by how convenient they are, but by how deeply they continue to shape us, even after time has passed. This connection continues to shape them in ways they never expected. Every reflection strengthens their conviction. Every quiet moment reinforces the same truth. They can no longer pretend that this message was meaningless or accidental. It arrived because they were finally ready to understand what it had been trying to reveal all along. As this understanding settles deeper into their heart, hesitation continues losing its power. They are becoming less concerned with how everything will unfold and more concerned with whether they remain faithful to what they now know is true. They have discovered that courage does not always appear as one dramatic moment. Sometimes courage arrives quietly through a series of small decisions, each one bringing a person closer to the life they were always meant to live. Your soulmate can feel themselves taking those steps now. They are no longer waiting for perfect timing because they have begun realizing that some moments become perfect only after someone chooses to trust them. The hidden message has already fulfilled its purpose. It awakened something that had been sleeping inside their heart for far too long. Now that awakening is leading them toward a decision that no longer feels frightening. Instead, it feels necessary. They know they cannot return to the person they were before this realization because once genuine understanding enters the heart, it quietly changes every path that lies ahead. After everything your soulmate has experienced, after every quiet reflection, every unexpected memory, and every truth that slowly found its way into their heart, they have finally reached a place they never thought they would stand. Listen carefully, because this is not simply the ending of one emotional journey. It is the beginning of another that will shape every decision they make from this moment forward. For a long time, they believed that clarity would arrive all at once, like a sudden answer that erased every doubt. They imagined that one perfect moment would explain everything they had been carrying inside. But life rarely works that way. Instead, clarity arrived gently, one realization at a time. It arrived through moments they almost ignored, through memories they nearly forgot, through emotions they tried convincing themselves no longer mattered. Piece by piece, the hidden message transformed from a quiet whisper into something their heart could no longer deny. They understand now that the greatest truths are often the ones that reveal themselves patiently, waiting until we are finally willing to see them without fear standing in the way. That understanding has changed far more than the way they see this connection. It has changed the way they see themselves. They no longer feel like someone searching endlessly for signs because they realize the sign they were waiting for has already arrived. It wasn't meant to answer every question about the future. It was meant to awaken the truth that had already been living inside them. That realization has brought an unexpected sense of peace. Not because every uncertainty has disappeared, but because they have stopped fighting against what their own heart has been trying to tell them. For the first time in a very long while, they are allowing themselves to believe that authentic feelings deserve to be heard instead of hidden. They are beginning to understand that silence may delay the truth, but it can never erase it. Time may change circumstances, distance may reshape routines, and life may lead people down unexpected roads. But genuine connections possess a remarkable ability to survive what was never meant to destroy them. That realization has become impossible for them to ignore. Every day, they wake up with a little more certainty than the day before. Every quiet evening leaves them with a little less fear than they carried yesterday. The questions that once kept them awake through endless nights have slowly been replaced by something much stronger. A quiet confidence that truth has a way of guiding those who are finally willing to trust it. They have also come to recognize something they never fully understood before. They spent far too much of their life listening to voices outside themselves. They allowed opinions, assumptions, fears, and imagined outcomes to become louder than the gentle wisdom already living inside their own heart. Every time they ignored that inner voice, they moved farther away from the peace they were searching for. Every time they chose fear over honesty, they postponed the very clarity they hoped to find. But the hidden message changed all of that. It reminded them that no one else can truly decide what their heart recognizes as meaningful. No one else can experience the emotions they carry, the memories they protect, or the lessons they have learned. Those belong to them alone. And because they belong to them, the responsibility of honoring those truths belongs to them as well. That realization has awakened a courage they did not know they possessed. It is not loud courage that demands attention. It is quiet courage that continues moving forward even when every answer has not yet appeared. It is the courage to stop pretending that uncertainty is easier than honesty. It is the courage to trust that vulnerability is not something to fear, but something that often leads people toward the life they were always meant to discover. They now understand that meaningful connections are rarely built through perfect timing or flawless circumstances. They are built through sincerity, growth, understanding, and the willingness to recognize what truly matters before it is too late. Looking back, they can finally see that every season of confusion served a purpose. Every delay taught patience. Every misunderstanding created an opportunity for deeper wisdom. Every unanswered question prepared them to recognize the value of the answers once they finally arrived. Even the painful moments now carry meaning because they helped shape the person standing here today. Instead of wishing the past had unfolded differently, they have begun appreciating how every experience quietly prepared them for this awakening. Without those lessons, they may never have recognized the hidden message when it finally reached them. They may never have understood its importance or allowed it to transform the way they viewed this connection. But now, everything feels different. The fear that once controlled every decision has begun fading into the background. In its place stands a quiet certainty that continues growing stronger with every passing day. They no longer measure this connection by confusion or uncertainty. They measure it by the undeniable impact it has left upon their heart. That impact has survived silence. It has survived distance. It has survived unanswered questions. Most importantly, it has survived every attempt to ignore it. Genuine truth possesses that kind of strength. It does not disappear simply because people become afraid of it. It waits patiently until the right moment arrives, and when that moment finally comes, everything begins to make sense in ways that logic alone could never explain. Your soulmate has reached that moment now. They are no longer searching for another hidden message because they understand that the message has already completed its purpose. It awakened them. It reminded them of what truly matters. It showed them that some connections are not meant to be forgotten simply because life became complicated. They are meant to teach us, change us, and lead us toward a deeper understanding of ourselves. As they prepare to step into this new chapter, they carry something they did not have before. They carry peace instead of constant confusion. They carry honesty instead of endless hesitation. They carry hope instead of fear. And above all, they carry the quiet certainty that once the heart finally recognizes the truth, nothing about the journey can ever remain the same again. The hidden message did not simply reach your soulmate. It awakened a part of their soul that had been waiting, perhaps for much longer than they ever realized, to finally embrace the truth with open eyes and an open heart. From this moment forward, they know one thing with complete certainty. They can never return to the person they were before that message found them, because the truth has become a permanent part of who they are. and the connection they once questioned has become impossible for their heart to deny.